Over the next few weeks, I'm going to be talking about 4 key areas: quality first teaching, otherwise known as QFT, the assess, plan, do, review cycle, pupil voice, which I have mentioned before, and parent voice. These are all things that feature in the code of practice, but they're also really important when we're supporting any child, but in particular special educational needs children. So, quality first teaching, what do we mean by that? Obviously, one would like to think that all teaching was of a certain quality. So obviously also the teacher is the main person delivering the education. So you would like to feel quality is there in the classroom. The idea is that before anything else is in place, you need to be sure that the teaching itself is of the right sort of quality. Now, one of the simple things, and this links to the helpful hints on my website, a simple thing that can be done to support quality first teaching is to have simple strategies that you're using within the classroom that will support not only those with special educational needs, but all learners. Now, the first one that I give out, and I normally repeat it at the beginning of every new term, is simply saying someone's name before you give an instruction. I just simply name first. Sounds really basic, but actually for a lot of children, if you were to say, for example, give out the books, Fred, when you say Fred, he looks up. The teacher might see that Fred is then not doing as told, not giving out the books, but Fred may not have been giving his full attention until he heard his name. So the instruction hadn't actually registered. Now that could just be because he was daydreaming at the time. It could just be, actually part of a special need. It could be to do with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, memory issues, attention issues, all sorts of things. Could mean that he just hadn't been paying attention, hadn't heard the instruction. If he then gets told off for not doing as he was asked, but doesn't know what he was asked to do, that's going to exacerbate any anxiety, any fear, any negative feelings towards school, towards the classroom. So the simple act of saying, Fred, getting his attention, making that eye contact maybe, depends on the child, but being sure that the child is listening. And then when you've got the attention, saying, give out the books, thank you. Fred knows that's what he's got to do. Okay, so a simple strategy, but can make a huge, huge difference and doesn't hurt anybody. So it's not one that you'd have to think, oh, well, who do I use that strategy for? Just a good habit to get into, saying a name first. Another simple strategy that doesn't detract from the learning for anyone else is to colour code the whiteboard. Okay, so for example, if the homework is always in the same position on the whiteboard, it's there, and maybe homework is always written in purple or whatever, that's easier for a child to then locate on the board. There's other stuff on the board, all this information, what am I looking for? Oh yeah, there's the homework. Then they can pick up that bit, or anything else. Alternating the colours when you're writing sentences. When I'm doing dictation, for example, I change the colour pen for capital letters, any form of punctuation, so that when I'm writing up afterwards, I do the dictation and then we go through it, that's re-emphasising all of the capital letters, full stops, question marks, whatever, because they're in a different colour. So using colour, it doesn't detract for anyone else, but it supports the learner who needs it. So this quality first teaching is about getting together loads of strategies. Now, the way I've done them is through the helpful hints that I've mentioned. They're on my website. I only ever put out one at a time on the website. The same was true when teaching. I wouldn't go up to a teacher and say, oh, by the way, for the dyslexic you need to do this, you need to do this. That just becomes too much, it's overload. If you give out a strategy at the beginning, at a weekly staff meeting, for example, which is how I would do it, our meetings were on Monday, then it gives, you explain what the strategy is, you give a reason for why using that strategy, and then it gives the teachers a week to embed it in their practice. It also was something I could do on my walks around the school. I'd be doing a learning quest walk, and I would see, for example, that there were visual timetables, but they weren't being referred to. So I might talk about visual timetables as a strategy. It could be that I saw a child getting upset when the class were told off, but that child had done nothing wrong. It's somebody on the spectrum, they just blame themselves for everything. Oh gosh, it must have been me. The simple strategy of saying, Tom, I don't mean you, carry on with what you're doing. Right, I want to talk about blah, blah, blah to the rest of the class. Then Tom knows it's not Tom who's got it wrong. Okay, so that's another simple strategy that might have come out of something I'd seen walking around the school. It just means that the helpful hints, the strategies we're giving teachers, are focused in on something that is needed at that time. It could be that there's all this, there's an instruction to the work that needs to be done, and there's a child there who's just sitting there and just can't get started. Oh gosh, what do I do? And it could be that Jenny just can't see through all that instruction. So chunking the information down, a simple strategy. I do it in my own doctoral corrections. I chunk down what do I need to focus on for what I'm doing today. And then it's not just so much stuff that you're thinking, I can't do it, it's too much, and you do nothing. A bit like the helpful hints, I'm chunking them, aren't I? Just one a week. So it may be that I've seen a few children getting a bit stressed, and I might say, right, let's try chunking our information, breaking it down into bite-sized pieces, it could be information or instructions, breaking it down and making that more manageable, making it bite-sized. It could be that everyone's fidgeting, they're flipping their rulers, the fidget string one I did a video blog on a few weeks ago. I might have noticed that actually we need to be giving out a few more fidget strings. So that might be a strategy I would discuss in the meeting, but one a week. And these help build up a toolbox for teachers to provide that quality first teaching. So before you take somebody out of the classroom and put in another intervention or do an intervention specific to that child within the classroom, making sure there are strategies in the classroom to make the education, the learning, the ideas accessible to all the children within that class. Okay, so that's basically quality first teaching. We'll come back to it when I talk about this assess, plan, do, review cycle, which is where we break down what needs to be done. Don't just assume somebody needs this help because they've got this diagnosis, for example. Very easy to say, oh, so-and-so is dyslexic, therefore we've got to help their spelling. Spelling might not be the main area in their dyslexia. I don't know. So there's a cycle that I will talk about next time. But before that, just having a pool of strategies, which as a Senko we can then offer out to the teachers and they can use in the class, offering them out to parents, things that parents can do at home when the mum says, oh, they never do what they're told. Have you said their name first? Going back to that first strategy. Very, very simple. Get someone's attention before we give an instruction. That was last week's helpful hint. I'll be putting a different one out for this week. But next week I'll talk more about the assess, plan, do, review cycle. That quality first teaching is something that has to be in every classroom. It says in the Code of Practice 2015 that every child in your class is you as a teacher, it's your responsibility for their learning. You have the responsibility. So teachers need the strategies to ensure that they can provide the education, they can ensure the learning is taking place. It is not the Senko's responsibility to deliver all the teaching. The Senko is the special educational needs provider, coordinator rather, wrong word, sorry. Special educational needs and disabilities coordinator. Their task is to coordinate things so that the right things are in place. A Senko cannot give all the education to all the people with special needs within their setting. Not possible. What they can do, and what we do, is we give the teachers the tools to provide a quality first education in the first place. Okay, quality first teaching, quality first education, so the children can access education within their environment under the responsibility and guidance of the class teacher. That's what quality first teaching is all about. Thank you.